Did you know that before the Inca ruled the Andes, there were entire civilizations building fortresses in the clouds and cities aligned with the stars? These are the lost kingdoms of South America, forgotten empires erased by time but never truly gone. In the mist-veiled highlands of northern Peru, far from modern cities, the Chachapoya carved a kingdom into the cliffs. The Spanish would later call them Los Guerreros de las Nubes, warriors of the clouds. But their real story began centuries before the Inca ever rose. The Chachapoya didn't just survive in the Andes, they mastered it. They constructed Cuelap, a mountaintop fortress built from over 3 times more stone than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its walls stood 20 meters high, with intricate entrances designed to funnel invaders into narrow choke points, pure strategic genius. Inside the city, round stone houses, ceremonial plazas, and temples perched in the fog. Outside, tombs embedded into vertical cliffs, accessible only with ropes, as if the dead needed protection from the living. Archaeologists believe they developed complex spiritual rituals, likely involving ancestor worship and sky deities. And for generations, they resisted the Inca, guerrilla fighters from the clouds. But by the late 1400s, the Inca finally subdued them, only for the Spanish to arrive decades later and erase both empires in turn. But the Chachapoya left echoes. Their mummies still found curled in high-altitude tombs wear the same expressions of defiance. Their DNA still runs through the people of the region. And Cuelap, though weathered, still clings to the sky like a memory, refusing to be forgotten. Further south, near Lake Titicaca, lies another enigma, Tiwanaku. This ancient city rose more than 12,000 feet above sea level in a place where oxygen is thin and the nights freeze hard. Yet this was once the beating heart of an Andean superpower. Long before the Incas, around 500 AD, Tiwanaku's builders moved 100-ton stones across miles of highland terrain, without wheels, iron tools, or draft animals. Some claim they used sound waves or cosmic alignment. Others credit extraordinary knowledge of engineering and teamwork. At the center of their city stood the Acapana Pyramid, surrounded by sacred courtyards and monolithic gates. One of the most famous is the Gateway of the Sun, a 10-ton arch carved with solar calendars, celestial symbols, and gods with radiant crowns. This wasn't just a city, it was a spiritual and political capital. They developed sophisticated agriculture, sunken gardens that retained moisture, fish-fertilized canals, and terraced fields that tamed the slopes. And yet, by 1000 AD, Tiwanaku collapsed. No war, no natural disaster, just disappearance. Some say drought ended their reign. Others suspect political fragmentation. The city emptied, the stones stood silent, but the culture spread, influencing every civilization that followed, including the Inca. But long before the Inca unified the Andes, it was the Wari Empire that first showed how empires could work at scale. From about 600 to 1100 AD, the Wari ruled a vast stretch of Peru, from the Pacific coast to the high mountains. Their capital, Huari, housed over 40,000 people with neatly planned streets, warehouses, and temples, a blueprint for future cities. The Wari pioneered terrace farming, using stone-lined slopes to capture rain and prevent erosion. They also developed quipu, knotted cords used for record-keeping and administration, possibly influencing the later Incan system. And unlike earlier civilizations, The Wari built roads, not just paths, proper highways, some of which the Inca later expanded into the Capacñan, the Great Inca Road. Their strength wasn't just military, it was organizational. Trade flowed across mountains, bringing obsidian, textiles, and pottery. Their influence was so wide that Wari-style cities have been found hundreds of kilometers from the capital. Yet, sometime around 1100 AD, the Wari faded. Again, no epic conquest, just slow decline. The jungle crept back, the cities emptied, the empire disappeared into the earth it once ruled. Now we travel north to what is today Colombia, where the Muisca Confederation flourished in the highlands near Bogotá. The Muisca weren't stone builders. They were economists, astronomers, and myth makers. They mastered salt extraction, traded emeralds, and cultivated a spiritual economy based on gold offerings. But what made them legendary was one ritual. On sacred Lake Guatavita, newly crowned kings would be covered in gold dust. As dawn broke, they would sail to the center of the lake, plunge into the water, and offer gold artifacts to the gods below. This story became the seed of the El Dorado legend. Spanish conquistadors, hungry for riches, tore through the Andes chasing this golden ghost, but they never found it. Because El Dorado was never a city. It was a belief, a ritual, a memory twisted by greed. The real kingdom, the Muisca's alliance of chiefdoms, was already unraveling under European conquest. By the mid-1500s, their traditions were outlawed, their language, Muiscubun, nearly lost. But traces survive, in their descendants, in the emerald trade, and in the lake that still holds secrets at its bottom. What connects all these lost kingdoms, from the warriors of the clouds to the lords of the lake, is not just what they built, but how they saw the world. They aligned cities to the stars. They carved deities into mountains. They turned landscapes into living calendars. These weren't primitive people. They were engineers, astronomers, priests, architects, administrators, builders of civilizations as complex as any in Egypt or Mesopotamia. But they left no Rosetta Stone. And so, in the eyes of colonizers and later historians, they were labeled lost, their knowledge dismissed, their stories fragmented. But they are not gone. These weren't primitive tribes. They were scientists, engineers, priests, and kings. They measured the stars, shaped the land, and built societies that thrived for centuries. But history rarely favors those without written records, and so they became myths. But their ruins remain, their stories endure, and their memory deserves more than silence. If you believe these stories matter, if you want to unearth the roots beneath the empire, subscribe to this channel. Because history isn't just about dates and battles, it's about memory and who gets to keep it alive. Stay curious.